Married men of Reddit, what moment with your future wife made you think yup, I'm asking this girl to marry me? The day she took off work to help me go through a dumpster. I had accidentally thrown my keys in the trash while cleaning out my car. Edit, we found them 2 hours later. That's stuck in teamwork. When she said you know, if you ask me to marry you, I'd say yes. Subtle. Can't be sure. Maybe she was Canadian and just trying to be friendly. When she was meeting my parents, she put together an outfit and asked, what do you think? Does this say hey parents? Look at me. I'm awesome. Or I slept with your son on the first date? Couldn't it be both? My father would appreciate both. My mother really appreciated her cleavage. We've had several conversations where I had to say Mom, I'm glad that you're as impressed with her bobs as I am. But can we please change the subject because this is getting a little uncomfortable. When I first told my father that I was dating someone new, he jokingly asked, what's her name? What does she do? What's her bra size? I told her about it, hoping to prepare her for his sense of humor. And she thought it was hilarious. The first time they met, she introduced herself by saying, hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm in college and I'm a B-Cup. My father was horrified. My mother was laughing hysterically. And I was in love. I was 18 and just gotten out of a dental appointment where 2 of my wisdom teeth were pulled out. I was drooling. Stains of blood all over my shirt and it was the summertime. My GF at the time was 16. Took what little money she had from her allowance. Bought me a box of ice cream and biked 25 minutes just to deliver that box of ice cream and see how I was doing. With blood stains all over. She still gave me that look of love and planted a kiss on me. That was almost 20 years ago and I still can't imagine having a happier life without her in it. In my first week as licensed as a paramedic, I had a 2-year-old die on me. When I got off work, I drove to my girlfriend's place and told her about my day. I was pretty numb at the time, trying to process this kid's death despite all my efforts. I laid down on her couch, and she just wrapped her arms around me and laid with me for 3-4 hours as I tried to process. She didn't push or ask lots of questions. Just laid there quietly and held me. I slowly was able to talk my way through it. And then the tears started. She cried with me. I felt the whole world was so dark and ugly. But she was my island of light. Started saving up for a ring that week. And asked her to marry me 6 months later. In September we celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary. I'm still a paramedic. And she's still my island. It was our first date. It was the last day of classes before Thanksgiving break. She was supposed to drive home after class. It was just a coffee date that stretched out for several hours. It was just comfortable. Conversation flowed. I wasn't worried about saying anything dumb or silly. We were completely ourselves. It culminated in a shy kiss in her car before she left to drive home. Her mom knew why she was late. Just by her mood. I went back to my apartment and talked to my roommate. I told him there was something special about this girl. We'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this summer. This may be a bit unusual, but the way she could toss an insult around. I tend to tease playfully. And she could always toss banter right back. We ended up insulting each other so much that my friend had to assure his girlfriend that we were only kidding and didn't hate each other. It was great. On or about our second date, my future spouse was on call for her medical job. Her beeper went off, dates the story, and we rushed to the hospital where I got to watch her handle a trauma case. I saw confidence, expertise, calmness under pressure, kindness and caring and a few other desired traits shine forth, and with that added to her package I knew she was someone I could respect for the rest of my life. We celebrate our 24th anniversary this fall. We were young. I was moving across the country to be with her at the time. And she got our apartment already before I got there. Our bathroom was really small. She had purchased this blue bathroom rug for the floor. And because the rug was too large, she carefully cut out these notches for the sink stand in the front of the toilet bowl so the carpet would fit perfectly flat. She cut the bathroom rug perfectly. I knew she had to be mine. Getting married next month. She came over 2 weeks into us dating with a Batman costume for my cat. She put my cat in the costume and then chased the cat around the apartment singing Da na 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 Batcat. There was never a doubt in my mind after that. She insisted on cooking me steak on one of our first few dates. It was the best steak I'd ever had. I ended up drunkenly confessing my love soon afterward. For the steaks. Of course. I've posted this before, but since you asked. When I was a young lad, I had bought a pair of swords. Now for some reason I still had them. But when my now wife agreed to come over my place, I decided to hide them in a storage closet because why would any grown man have these? So, a while down the line she was looking for something in said closet when I heard, "What the hell? You have swords? Why are you hiding these?" I was prepared to be mocked mercilessly. When instead she handed me one and then started swinging. It was about that time that I realized I was going to marry her. I stepped on a girl's foot at a festival. I turned and apologized sincerely and the girl accepted my apology. Her drunk friend though decided to start screaming at me and threatened to assault me, saying I'm a girl. You can't hit back. When she shoved me, my future wife came out of nowhere and punched her so hard her shoe came off. I said, "Yup. I'm marrying this woman." Edit. My wife isn't the one whose foot I stepped on. Should have worded it better. She and I had been casually dating 8 months and she was off looking for our friends when I stepped on the girl's foot. I don't even care how cliche it is, I knew the first moment I saw her. It was this super weird feeling of intuition that I'd never felt before. And that never went away. It was like, yeah, you're going to marry her someday. In the meantime, you should figure yourself out because you're kind of a giant tool right now. We didn't even date until 5 years later, dated other people and had our own lives, and during that whole time she was just this little seed waiting patiently in the back of my subconsciousness. Marriage has been at times euphoric and at times agonizing. Right now it's better than ever. Our second baby will be born next week. It actually happened without much fanfare. We were in bed one night before going to sleep, talking about our relationship and our future. We had already bought a house together and had a dog. And we had talked about marriage in the past. But it wasn't a huge priority for either of us. Talking about how cool it would be to have our wedding be like a reunion with a lot of old friends made it seem really appealing. And we knew that we both would be staying together for pretty much the rest of our lives. She ended up just saying it in the end, so, "Do you want to?" And I said, "Yeah. I guess I do. It makes sense." And everything happened from there. Completely and wholly unromantic. Yay for us. We're now coming up on 8 years of marriage with 2 kids. For the most part, it was the fact that the very day we started dating she was staying at my house. Not quite living there. Just hanging out forever till that turned into living with me. Never thought too much about it till a year later and realized that we have never spent a day away from each other. Married September 2006. And still going strong. When we were having a conversation and she kept making me laugh. Her sense of humor is incredible. It also helped when I was taking her out on an early date and she said, "You're spending too much money on me." She knew money was very tight for me. We were in college. Our 34th anniversary is this Saturday. My wife and I were good friends before we became romantically involved. She was one of the guys. And it wasn't unusual to roughhouse a little. This sounds sexual in retrospect. But it really wasn't at the time. You know that thing you used to do to your sister when you were like 12? Where you pin her down and threaten to spit on her by letting the spit hang out of your mouth. Then sucking it back up at the last minute? Dear God. I hope I'm not the only one who did this. Well, I did that to my friend now wife. Except I waited too long and I accidentally spit directly in her eye. Instead of being furious like a normal person. She busted out laughing. We've been married 12 years. On our 4th date we got a cheap pizza and went to a park in October up north. We fell asleep and woke up freezing at 2 in the morning. Instead of getting up and leaving, we just held each other and went back asleep for another 2 hours. I knew from that moment I was gonna marry this girl. We had a long distance relationship. We lived 3 to 4 hours away from each other the entire time we dated. We had met at a concert and traded emails and MSN info. Classic. We emailed and chatted every day. Sometimes for hours. We poured our hearts out about our fears and dreams. I'd go visit her every other weekend. And she'd come once in a while my way. About 3 or 4 months into doing this, I'm at home chilling at home playing some game in my room. My dad calls up the stairs that I got a package in the mail. So I, confused, come walking down the stairs. And there she was. She came up to visit as a surprise. Without thinking, I instinctively ran to her and hugged her and lifted her and spun her a bit. And I felt in my heart a wholeness. Like holding her filled in something I was missing. I knew then that I never would let her go, metaphorically speaking. Been married over 9 years. And I still get that feeling when I hug and kiss her. I got mad and yelled at her for some stupid shit because I had been in a toxic relationship prior to meeting her, and I thought that what couples did, scream and argue. I expected her to yell back at me. But she just stared at me for a moment and asked if I was done. I said I was, and she proceeded to explain to me that people who love one another do not treat each other that way. We can disagree with one another, but there's no reason to be mean. If we're going to be together, please don't be mean to me again. That was 26 years ago. We've been married 25 years. Edit. Thank you guys so much for the kind replies and messages. But I have to confess something. I'm still an asshole. Just not to her. Semicolon P. Like our 4th date. At her house, the episode of The Simpsons is on where they're hiding the town's trash everywhere. Without any prompting or ever talking about the show, Doug, we both simultaneously said stash our trash. Beautify Bluffington. An absolutely inconsequential line in a mediocre show neither of us had seen in over a decade. We boned. She told me on several occasions that she would dare me if I dumped her after she turned 40. So I proposed on her 40th birthday. When my son called her mama. My ex left us high and dry when my son was 4 months old. There was this guy I was kinda casually seeing. And the very first time I met his son, he excitedly called me mommy and held out his arms. I looked at the man with the most alarmed look on my face. And he had the same look. I was like WTF yo, and he was like this has never happened before. Still makes me wonder sometimes. My husband tells me he knew when he casually asked me this question on our 2nd date. What time is it? Correct answer, and the answer I gave. It's howdy doody time. Married 24 years in August. It wasn't like a thunderbolt thing. But right after we first banged, she got up and walked naked across the room to the bathroom. And I'll always remember how good it felt laying there, and how this was definitely the hottest woman who had ever walked naked across my room. I thought then I could marry this girl. Course. It wasn't just the hotness. Doesn't hurt that she's a financial genius. Has 2 degrees. A great paying job. And is the most patient person I know. What the duck she's doing wasting her life with me, I'll never know. Lol. But I'm grateful. Engaged. Our first date lasted 12 hours because we just couldn't stop talking. Our 2nd date was supposed to be just dinner and it lasted almost 2 days. She drove away after the 2nd date and I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. I was ecstatic to find out she felt the same. Hot redhead on street. Patrick's Day drinking Guinness out of a pitcher. That's the girl for me. Introduce myself. Spent the rest of the day with her. Stumbled to buddies who lived close to the bar. Told him I met the girl I was going to marry. Been 20 plus years. We got really high. Got in bed. And pretended we were pieces of chipotle chicken in a blanket quesadilla. We're getting married in January. My girlfriend does this without being high. If she gets a blanket ever, she literally rolls herself into it saying burrito over and over. We had gone on 2 or 3 dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend, and I knew the instant she said yes that we would be married one day. Her eyes just lit up like nothing else when I told her I wanted to make things official. It has felt like I can read her mind since the day I met her. I know when she's happy, sad, upset, tired, annoyed, etc. I knew a few days before she asked me to move in with her that she was going to ask. We have been in sync pretty constantly. And I'm incredibly lucky to be married to someone with whom I'm so in tune. We dated for 3 years. But I knew from day one that we were going to be married. I don't really believe in soulmates or anything too mystical. However, if there was anyone who could change my mind about that, it's my wife. I was divorced going on my 3rd year. Had dated several women. But this one girl I only had been dating 10 days when I blurted out asking her to marry me. She said yes. It's been 32 years now and we're still very much in love. We danced together at a high school graduation party. We had been out a few times previous but were not dating at the time. I was invited by another girl's mother. She was hosting the party. That was 38 years ago. We've been married 30 years. We dated for 8 years. I was driving us home from a golf tournament for couples. We stopped to get some lunch, and as I was driving she handed me a perfectly unwrapped burger that I could eat one-handed while she sat cross-legged next to me. Not sure why, but I just felt so loved, nurtured and happy in that moment. Now that's sort of our thing. We love to travel, and no matter where we stop to eat she will always make sure I am able to eat in a convenient way. Something about watching the road while your now wife sets a napkin on your leg, puts the fries face up in the cup holder and gets the burger ready to go. Been together 10 years, married for 2. When I realized that I would rather stay home watching stupid TV shows or movies with her than going out with my friends, I took her down to the lake to meet my family. Previous girls had been afraid to get into the lake. It's a small lake so it can get kind of mucky. She forgot the bottom to her bikini, which I thought, oh boy, how convenient. Now you can't get in the lake. I roll. Instead she swipes my basketball shorts out of my bag, says duck it, and throws them on and goes sprinting to the lake and jumps in with a big cannonball before anyone else even gets in. Impressed the hell out of everyone. She can hang. I was sitting in a sand volleyball court at 3 AM with a close friend, best man at my wedding actually, having a deep conversation when I realized it wasn't that I could imagine spending the rest of my life with my so, but that I couldn't imagine not spending the rest of my life with her. Also, we had each dropped 2 hits of LSD hours before this epiphany. The moment I knew that my wife was the one for me, we were having some post-coital pizza, and she asked me if the next time we did this, we could get double bacon on the pizza. Never letting her go. While making Rice Krispie treats, my future wife snuck a spoonful of the melted marshmallow and made me a fresh peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwich without me noticing. When I took the first bite, I knew I'd never find anyone better. I have never been in a fight in my life. Always trying to disperse hostility via conversation or humor. I have been ready to fight, not necessarily wanting to fight but 100% ready for 1-2 times in my entire life. Both were when I thought my fiancée, now wife, was in danger. May seem stupid but that's because I can't emphasize how little I want to fight. All I cared for was her safety. This was a big deal and a big realization for me that this one was the one.